All right.
Whee!
Oh, is that your Liesel from Sound of Music impression?
Oh my God. Yeah, I didn't know who I was channeling. That's who it is.
That's who it is. And then the shadow catches one of her teeth and it looks like she has like one tooth.
It does. I thought I was the only person who noticed that.
Oh my God, no.
My God, it is burned
there's-
into my brain.
It's just like, wee!
She looks horrifying, but she's so beautiful.
I know.
Yes, I've had the odd complaints, but on the whole, I've been a saint. To those poor unfortunate souls.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Poor Unfortunate Podcast. I'm Caroline Ameti.
And I'm Connor Perkins. It's so nice to be with you all again. Here we are with our second episode of season 2.
It feels so good. I love season 2.
It really does. Season 2 is great. It's neon, it's glowing, she's beautiful, she's bright. For anyone who is new, welcome. It's so great to have you with us this time. Please make sure that you hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you're listening. That way, all of our new episodes download right to your device and you don't miss anything. And for all of you people who are here every week, if you haven't done this either, just do it now. Like, just do it. Like, it's fine. Great. Now that we've done that. So moving on to some news. Caroline, what is going on?
Oh my gosh, I feel like every day there's something new. Before we get to the major things, I just personally want to say that right now I just get a beautiful waft in my room of my Candles of Tomorrow candle. And I just want to talk about that just for a quick minute. You've heard about us talk about them before. And I just want to say that my beach club candle is making me feel really good right now and hopeful about being back in the parks. So since our last episode, Disneyland has reopened. It was amazing watching all of the cast members on Main Street waving to everyone walking in, and some of them were crying.
Oh yeah, V emotions.
Oh, all of the new, all of the things that are happening over at, Disney Princess. We're getting a new Disney Princess theme song from Brandy, which I love that.
Oh yeah. And the Broadway Princess Party is now an official concert with Disney Concerts.
They made that
going to be touring over the next 2 years.
That's goals.
It's insane.
That's what we're trying to get to happen.
Yeah, if you don't know what the Broadway Princess Party is, it was started by Laura Osnes, who she was the original Cinderella on Broadway, and she got together with the other princesses of Broadway who have played different Disney princess characters, and they would do a cabaret in 54 Below, and it became like one of the hottest 54 Below events, and now it draws enough people that Disney's like, hey, we're going to do a concert with y'all. And so like you get Susan Egan, who is the original Belle on Broadway and the voice of Meg in Hercules.
Oh my God.
We've got
Courtney Reed,
who was Jasmine on Broadway. It's just like, it's great.
Yes, please.
But speaking of Disney and Broadway, Disney on Broadway has officially announced now that they are coming back after this hell of a pandemic wait that has just kept Broadway on lockdown. A ton of shows have announced that they're coming back in September. And among them are the 2 Disney on Broadway shows that we have running currently. So on September 14th, The Lion King returns. And then on September 28th, Aladdin comes back to the New Amsterdam Theater. So that's some really big, really, really big news that has been, I know, anxiously awaited by a lot of people. It's sad that it's only 2 out of the 3 Disney Broadway shows that we're playing.
I know.
So
It's
taking a moment to remember Frozen, our fallen hero.
Yes.
Those people deserved a much longer run than they got.
Oh, yes. Disney World announced that Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party will not be happening this year, but it will be replaced by the Boo Bash.
Yeah, with no parades, no
parade,
fireworks.
Which I've been to the Not So Scary Halloween party, and that's why you go, because it ain't the little miniature candy bars that you get when you trick or treat. So I don't know. I haven't heard anything about the prices for that yet. It had better be some low prices, and I doubt it will be.
I mean,
so
because you're gonna go and you're gonna like maybe get candy, and
you'll see like Mickey in his costume. You'll wear yours. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
Good luck with that, Disney World. We're anxiously watching what happens. This was the thing that got me really, really excited.
Yeah.
Speaking of Halloween, the Muppets announced that they will be doing a Halloween special on Disney Plus this October called Muppets Haunted Mansion.
Oh, yeah.
This is the crossover that we have been waiting for.
Yeah, it really is.
The little teaser is so funny. Muppets Haunted Mansion. It's so good. I can't wait for this. I mean, we haven't gotten a Muppets Halloween special before. So like this is very long overdue.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited for it.
We'll definitely be covering that on here. There's no way.
Absolutely.
There's no way.
Absolutely. May the 4th happen. So we got the Bad Batch series on Disney
Oh,
Plus.
yes. So we got the 2-second preview for the Star Cruiser experience in Disney World.
With the new lightsaber that everyone was freaking out about that we're not going to be allowed to touch because it's going to be a cast member only situation. And I'm like, yay! And then you have the moment where you're like, oh.
Good luck to that cast member. That's all I got to say.
All right. So this is our Showdown episode. So in the Showdown episode, we take 2 similar things and we pit them against each other and then we declare a winner. But this is a really interesting one because we have chosen 2 things that neither Caroline or I had seen prior to choosing them for this episode.
Very true. Mm-hmm.
So we're really coming in here like super focused just on this.
Yeah.
So we have chosen to do this showdown about Tangled the series and Big Hero 6 the series, specifically looking at both of their pilots. So we haven't gone on to finish the entire series. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to really be looking at their 2 pilot episodes because one of the really cool things about these 2 series is they were both launched with an original movie. So the Tangled series, which has been renamed to Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, started with the Disney Channel original movie Tangled Before Ever After. And Big Hero 6 started with a Disney XD original movie, Baymax Returns, which then subsequently got split and then became the first 2 episodes of the series. So we were like, this is kind of fun. These are 2 of the most recent Disney TV series spin-offs from a movie that both started exactly the same way. So that's what we're going to be talking about. Obviously, there are going to be spoilers ahead. So if you, like us, have not watched either of these movies, take the time. They're quite short. They're an hour or less. And do that right now. And we will wait. And welcome back. So I did some background on Big Hero 6, the series. Caroline, you did background on Tangled, the series, / Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure.
Yes.
/ Tangled Before Ever After.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot of things in one. Yeah.
I asked Caroline if I could do the history of Big Hero 6, the series, because I feel like I have talked a lot about the history of Tangled over this like entire season 1. So I put it all on Caroline this time.
That's great. Number 1, I really wanted to do this. And also disclaimer, take everything we say about Tangled with a grain of salt because we're obsessed with it. So,
Just slightly.
We love it.
Yeah, we love it.
So the series that we now know as Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure was launched by the 2D animated 55-minute film Tangled Before Ever After on March 10th, 2017 on Disney Channel. This served as the pilot for the series, as Connor said, is produced by Disney Television Animation, and regular episodes began airing on March 24th, 2017, and they're each about 22 to 26 minutes long. So This series takes place after the events of the 2010 feature film Tangled, and before the events of the short Tangled Ever After from 2012, which depicts Rapunzel and Flynn, aka Eugene's wedding, about 2 years after the events of Tangled. So the series ran for 3 seasons. The first season has 21 episodes with an average of 1 million viewers. Then season 2 had 21 episodes as well, and season 3 had 17 episodes, and that's when it all wrapped up. So Disney first announced the development of a Tangled series in June 2015, and in February 2017, it was announced the show was already renewed for a second season a full month before the pilot even aired. So there was a lot of interest in a Tangled series. I get it.
I love that.
Yeah, I love it. And then in May 2018, the second season premiered, and then it was also announced that the series would be renamed Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure. The third and final season aired in October 2019, and the finale aired on March 1st, 2020. Notice how the world fell to pieces right after that. Just saying. The series and the TV movie are both on Disney Plus, along with 3 to 4 minute episodes of Tangled, the series shortcuts, just little tiny shorts. They're fun. So the series and its TV movie pilot were both developed by Chris Sonnenberg. He was in the animation department for Enchanted, for Atlantis, for Kung Fu Panda, and Shane Prigmore, who was in the animation department for Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and Coraline.
Oh,
yeah, right?
I love that combination.
I know. It makes sense to me. Some of the directors of the episodes include Joe O, who was part of the team for Hercules, Tarzan, Princess and the Frog, Steven Sandoval, who worked on the Simpsons movie and Gravity Falls, and Tom Caulfield. So before I continue on some facts, I would just like to say Season 2, Episode 7 was directed by Bosu Coburn, and it is the only episode of the series directed by a non-male. And that's a no for me. Tom and Steven also directed the TV movie. We'll talk more about this later. That doesn't work for me. But
all right,
moving on.
Yeah.
Tangled Before Ever After features 2 new songs, Life After Happily Ever After and Wind in My Hair, both from Alan Menken and Glenn Slater, who wrote the songs for the original film. These songs are so good. So Wind in My Hair would also go on to become the title song for the series. And the series also features the total banger, More of Me, sung by Natasha Bedingfield during the closing credits. And then there are even more songs as the series develops and an album that you can go listen to. And it's all just great stuff. So this was the 4th animated Disney Channel original movie, following the Kim Possible movie, the Proud Family movie, and the Phineas and Ferb movie called Across the Second Dimension. So quickly, the series and its TV movie pilot are starring Mandy Moore as Rapunzel, Zachary Levi as Flynn Rider, a.k.a. Eugene, Eden Espinosa as Cassandra, Clancy Brown as King Frederick, Clancy Brown, a.k.a. Mr. Krabs, people, Julie Bowen as Queen Ariana, Laura Benanti as Lady Kane, Jeremy Jordan as Varian, MC Gainey as the Captain of the Guard, and some fun appearances by Jeffrey Tambor as Big Nose, Sean Hayes as Pete the Guard, and Paul F. Tompkins as Shorty, who we love Shorty. We are obsessed. Lots of theater performers like James Monroe Iglehart, who is the original genie in Aladdin on Broadway, join along as the series continues. So Before Ever After has a 71% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb. And the series itself scored a 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb. In 2020, it won 3 Daytime Emmys for Outstanding Main Title for an Animated Program, Outstanding Original Song in a Children's Young Adult or Animated Program, and Outstanding Writing for an Animated Program, and was nominated for Daytime Emmys and Annies every season that it was on. So there was also discussion of a spin-off series called Varian and the Seven Kingdoms, but Disney ultimately passed on a series based on Rapunzel's story that would not have Rapunzel actually in it. Makes sense to me. Shall I do the plot synopsis?
Yes.
All right, a quick little plot synopsis about the pilot, the TV movie, which launches us into the rest of the series. So, 6 months after the events of the Tangled film, our favorite gal Rapunzel is having a hard time adjusting to life as a royal. As her coronation approaches, Rapunzel fears she has not seen enough of the outside world and is already getting sick of her father's overprotective parenting. Flynn, Eugene, whatever. I hate when people call him Eugene, but they call him Eugene in this. He's Flynn. He proposes to Rapunzel the night before her coronation, only adding to her turmoil. Totally overwhelmed, she sneaks beyond Corona walls for the night with her extremely sketchy handmaiden, Cassandra, who keeps trying to convince Rapunzel to hide things from Eugene. I'm not here for it. Cassandra leads Rapunzel to the former location of the magical healing flower that saved the queen and gave Rapunzel magical hair. Rapunzel touches one of the black thorn-like rocks that have sprung up around the site and is struck by magic. Rocks start exploding out of the ground, and suddenly, Rapunzel's 70-foot-long blonde hair has returned. If you recall, at the end of the film, it was cut off. She's a brunette. And this time, the hair cannot be cut. But it's coronation day, and Rapunzel proves that Damien from Mean Girls is right because her hair is indeed full of secrets. During the coronation, Lady Kane, who was disguising herself as a visiting duchess, reveals herself and seeks revenge on King Frederick, who imprisoned her father, a simple petty thief, when he was rounding up criminals in the kingdom after Rapunzel's kidnapping. Rapunzel reveals her hair and saves the day, but the king is totally shook by her deception and forbids Rapunzel from leaving the palace. Looks like there are a lot of loose ends to tie up.
Oh, God.
Before we get to the...
Caroline, no.
Before we get to the amazing wedding day that we see in Tangled Ever After, as Rapunzel seeks to solve the mystery of her hair and become her own woman along the way.
All right. That was great.
That's it.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about Big Hero 6, the series, and give you some background. So, Big Hero 6, it's a 22 to 23 minute on average hand-drawn animated television series that was produced by Disney Television Animation, which, if you don't know, Disney Television Animation has basically done almost every Disney TV series ever. And Big Hero 6, the series, was originally slated to be on Disney XD, and then it was moved to the Disney Channel. So it is a sequel to the 2014 Academy Award-winning film Big Hero 6, which is loosely based on the Marvel Comics series of the same name. So the series, as I had said before, premiered with a 43-minute TV movie on Disney XD on November 20th, 2017, entitled Baymax Returns. The series was then moved from Disney XD to Disney Channel before its premiere on June 9th, 2018, my birthday.
Yes!
And the first 2 episodes of the series were the TV movie split into 2 episodes. So if you're looking for it on Disney Plus, the first 2 episodes are the movie, unlike with Tangled, where Tangled Before Ever After is its own movie selection from the series. So season 1 of Big Hero 6, the series, had 22 episodes. Season 2 had 22 episodes as well. And then season 3, which was the final season, was moved back to Disney XD. And then that had a total of 10 11-minute episodes.
Oh.
So, yeah, it was kind of weird. They sort of like reduced down, and then it was announced that the series finale would air on February 15th, 2021. So it ended this year. There are also some shorts in the same way that Tangled has the shortcuts. So you can watch some Big Hero 6 animated shorts in the same way.
There's so much content I just didn't know existed. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, there's a lot. So the series is available now on Disney Plus, and it has been announced that a Walt Disney Animation Studios spin-off series called Baymax will be released on the streaming platform in 2022. Now, the important thing about Walt Disney Animation Studios handling this series is that's not obviously Disney Television Animation. That's the people who actually make the films. That's the studio. So I would imagine that this series is probably going to realize this Baymax series in the CG animation of the movie, as opposed to the 2D like hand-drawn animation that we got here. That's what I'm betting. But obviously we don't know a whole lot, because this was one of the announcements that came on the Disney Investors Day announcements. So
got buried,
yeah, more things to see. So Big Hero 6, the series, was developed by Mark McCorkle and Bob Shuley, who they both did Kim Possible and Buzz Lightyear of Star Command.
Oh my God.
I know. And Nick Filippi. The series directors included Stephen Henneveld, Ben Juono, Kathleen Good, and Kenji Ono. And the music is by Adam Berry, who also did Kim Possible. So they brought a lot of the Kim Possible fam back for this one, which is kind of cool. So the series stars Ryan Potter as Hiro Hamada, Scott Adsit as Baymax, Jamie Chung as Go-Go, Genesis Rodriguez as Honey Lemon, Maya Rudolph as Aunt Cass, Alan Tudyk as Alistair Cray. So those are all the original voice actors from the film. And then the two characters who were not reprised by their original voice actors are Kari Payton, who replaced Damon Wayans Jr. as Wasabi, and Brooks Wheelan, who replaced TJ Miller as Fred. It has a 78% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, a 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb. It was nominated for 4 Emmy Awards, both primetime and daytime. Primetime because of the TV movie. And then it was nominated for 3 Annie Awards, winning 1. All right, so plot synopsis. Picking up before the epilogue of Big Hero 6, expanding on it and occasionally conflicting with it, Big Hero 6, the series, starts with Hiro Hamada, a brilliant early teen scientist who has endured way too much loss, most notably his dreamy older brother and role model, Tadashi, finally attending San Fransokyo Institute of Technology, a college for the brightest inventors in the world. On his first day, he passes by his brother's old private lab, discovering the data chip to Tadashi's greatest invention, Baymax, a healthcare companion robot and beautiful marshmallow of love. Hiro decides to rebuild Baymax according to his brother's plans and use the preserved data in the chip to bring back his squish of a friend who he lost tragically in the events of Big Hero 6. But Hiro is kind of cocky, and he rushes things, and he creates a flawed Baymax skeleton because that's what happens. Baymax literally jumps out of the window in a crazy robot spasm, escaping the Institute property and roaming the city where he is captured by Yama, a robot-fighting gangster working for a mysterious, unknown supervillain. So in order to save the day, Hiro must reunite with his friends, swallow some of his ego, and resurrect their science nerd superhero ways as Big Hero 6. And so that's Big Hero 6, the series. That's how we kick things off. So now to get into the nitty-gritty, we're going to look at the strengths and weaknesses of both of these series and hopefully be able to tell you who our winner is today. So we looked at both series in a couple different ways. So we looked at the overall concept and how it expanded the original source material, the actual story of the pilot, the animation, and then some of the voice performances as well. So starting off with Big Hero 6, looking at the strengths, the positives. In terms of overall concept and expanding the source material, first of all, as soon as I finished watching this movie for the first time, I immediately said that I could watch a TV series of the adventures of Big Hero 6. I was kind of shocked that it took them a few years to announce it and make it happen, but I'm glad that they eventually did because the source material lends itself so perfectly to a TV series. And because it's also based on a comic series, and comics fit so well into the serialized world of TV. You know, it's also a fun crossover of the world of Walt Disney Animation Studios properties into Disney TV, which hadn't really happened since the start of the Disney revival period. And I think this is actually true for both Tangled, the series, and Big Hero 6, the series. The most recent films touched were Lilo and Stitch and The Emperor's New Groove. So we had quite a few that had come out between that and Tangled and Big Hero 6 that they never attempted to do any sort of TV crossover with. I mean, we had some of the older stuff coming back, like we had The Lion Guard, which obviously is from The Lion King and things like that, but none of the newer stuff. So that I think is a real strength to this series, and I would say Tangled, the series, because we love to see that crossover.
Yeah, I'm in very much the same zone as you in that this just makes total sense to me. But I also did not realize actually until you told me, and then I rewatched the end of Big Hero 6, that this 2-episode pilot is pretty much the end of the feature film and it gets expanded upon. And yes, what we'll get to later is some conflict and things that don't match up there. But I do love the idea of what was going on between these moments in the film that we don't really get to see. I always love that. And I think expanding the Big Hero 6 universe a bit brings Disney programming that is geared toward kids into a bit of a new zone in the types of viewers and kids that it might draw. And I think that's always a smart move. And just honestly, on a superficial level, Hero and Baymax are the best. And so I always take more of them, especially Baymax.
Yeah, I rewatched the full movie before I embarked on the series, and I kind of forgot how much I really, really like Big Hero 6. I think the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I just like never sort of revisited it. I came back to it like a couple of times. I was like, oh, this is nice. But it never became like one of my go-tos. And rewatching it, I'm just like, this movie rocks. Why is it not like one of my go-tos? I love that this is kicking off the series, as Caroline said, with that overlap in the epilogue, expanding it out so that we can see what all is happening in that closing montage of the movie. Because, as Caroline said, this pilot takes place in the span of that epilogue of the movie, which is about 3 minutes. So we've basically taken a 3-minute montage and blown it up into a 45-minute movie, which I think is just so cool. And it's always an interesting technique, and it's fun for an audience to put the pieces together of like, oh, I see how we got from there to here. And it's also a super easy way of just plunging you right into this whole idea of like, we are expanding this stuff because you're literally expanding a moment from the original source material. So moving into the strengths of the story, I mean, I really like that to launch the series, we're also bringing back the character of Yama, who is from the beginning of Big Hero 6, the film. It's a nice like full circle moment. And I think structurally it helps us have like a very firm footing in this world by returning us to something that's familiar from the beginning of our first journey with these characters, now that we're starting on the next journey with them. So I think like structurally, storytelling wise, that's a really, really smart move on their part. I also think the messages of this first episode are exactly right for the hero that we have now.
Agreed.
Since we're moving out of the healing and grieving process of the loss of Tadashi, which occupies the film, and thinking more about legacy and charting your own course. I think that's very clear, and it's a good thesis for the series that is very evident in this pilot. So you can tell that we're really going to go and focus on Hiro growing into the person that he wants to be, and his friends finding their purpose with the good that they can all do together, which I think that's super fun. And then, you know, I also just love the level of character threads that are being introduced in this pilot. And they're balanced so well because we've got Hiro and Baymax. We've got Hiro with the Dean. You got Fred and the gang, Yama and his baddies. There's like a fair amount of subplots that are being introduced and also like being concluded throughout the pilot, which I think is some sophisticated storytelling on like a kid's TV show. So story-wise, I think there's a lot that's really going for this pilot right out of the gate.
And that is exactly what I think the strongest point is as well, is the many threads of the story. And I think they adapted this well into the kind of story for TV that kids like, which is it's great to jump to other characters if kids aren't into one specific one that's getting a lot of focus. This made me think a little bit of, no one's going to know because it's such a kids show, but it made me think of like Wild Kratts. It made me think a little bit of Cyber Chase from when we were kids, where there's just like a lot of different things going on, many different members of the team for you to get attached to. And I think that is the number one strength because interestingly, and I'll get to this, this is a little bit of a spoiler of what I'm going to say later, but I actually wasn't super interested in Yama. So it was okay with me because I got to see other things that I was more interested in. And we didn't spend too much time on him. So that was a big win for me.
Cool. Oh, I love that we have a little difference of opinion here.
Yeah.
So moving on to the strengths of the animation. The change in animation style here, it's pretty drastic to see a movie that's rendered like so beautifully in CG with some iconic visuals all of a sudden becoming a 2D cartoon. Like it's a bit of a culture shock.
Yes.
However, I don't think it didn't take me long to adapt to it. And I think it does really work here, especially given that this is a nerdy superhero story based on a comic series, to adopt a comic book art style plays right into the whole purpose of the series. So while it does feel like a departure, it's not an odd departure. It feels purposeful. It feels like there's some reasoning behind it. I mean, I think it's also helpful for audiences in changing up the animation to differentiate TV from film, to have that contrast between animation styles, because I know with some of the older shows like The Little Mermaid, it could be frustrating to see the more hastily done animation that is in the same artistic style as the film, but it's not quite up to the standard of the film.
Yeah.
So you're just sort of like, it's this weird dynamic of it's like, okay, is this not? And then I think of like Star Wars, the Clone Wars series, which is animated and the prequels are not. And it works really, really well because you know what you're doing here. And I think it's either like make something the same quality as the film, i.e. like The Mandalorian, or just make it completely a different thing, because otherwise people are going to make direct comparisons. And that's just an uphill climb as a TV show coming right out of the gate. So I think there's a lot that's happening for this series. And I will also say for Tangled as well, based around this sort of idea of changing up the animation, that I think is the right move for them, given that they probably have, budget constraints and things like that. But, I also, this is just one final thing that's very unique to Big Hero 6 in the animation. I think it's also really smart to change it up for marketing purposes, because they were actually able to take these characters and put them into a new comic books series in the same art styling of the TV series. So it just makes it all feel a bit more cemented and concrete. It's one of the few times I think Marvel has ever done this, where they licensed another publishing company to do art and stories of one of their properties. That's very huge. Interesting. But it's really cool because you can go out and buy these comics and you can watch it on screen, and it's like the comics are coming to life on your TV screen. And I think that's really fun. That's like a cool thing that, Big Hero 6, the series, had an opportunity for, and they like took it and ran with it. And that's awesome.
I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I did a deep dive.
I love that. That's too cool. I mean, that's so cool. And again, we're agreeing a lot on the strengths in that. To me, the change in animation style added this feeling of familiarity to this. That's nice. That maybe even if kids did not see the movie, they're like, oh, I know what kind of show this is. This is one of those like comic superhero shows. I like those. And then it's an easy gateway for them into the show. And I think that's a great call.
And then our last section of strengths for Big Hero 6, the voice performances. I mean, I think it's great that we got so many of the original voice actors back to this show. I mean, to have a new voice for Hero or Baymax would just be really jarring and make it feel like a knockoff.
Yeah.
But for them to have, Ryan Potter and Scott Adsit, but also be able to keep Maya Rudolph on as Aunt Cass, as just sort of like their little like ace in the pocket.
Yeah.
I think that it's a really nice touch, and it really helps you feel like they're investing in this show in a way that like they might not have in previous years with some of the other things that they've done in Disney TV.
Yeah.
And then I think also just the voice actors approaching this show, they approach it in the same way that I think they did the film. There really isn't any type of phoning it in that I was hearing. I think it's really these voice performances that help sell the new animation style, and that this is a continuation of the story as opposed to just its own thing over on the side.
Yeah. All right, so jumping back over to Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure, we're going to talk about some of the strengths that are happening here.
I'm also going to apologize in advance. I'm going to keep calling this Tangled the series. Because
that's what when my mind was blown. Once I actually went to Disney Plus, I was like, wait.
I started searching for Tangled the series and I couldn't find it. So forgive me. If I talk about Tangled the series, I'm talking about Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure seems like that's what the ride would be called,
Yeah. What gives?
Tangled the series. So strengths for Tangled the series. For me, maybe I'm fragile, but In terms of the overall concept and expansion of the source material, what I love is going into this knowing we are going to get the happily ever after wedding that I love so much. I think creating a series out of the between moments of larger Disney pieces is absolutely brilliant, because as a viewer, I don't have to feel insecure that the characters and dynamics and relationships that I love are going to change or get ruined. And I'm thinking of like Pocahontas 2, things like that are just really hard for me to stomach. I also watched the first episode of the actual series, and I thought a great touch was having Mother Gothel appear in Rapunzel's dream. Spoiler. It just reminded me of what a fantastic film Tangled was and how high the stakes are and just where we've been. I think that's really smart. But again, that's stepping into the TV series. And I just love that Rapunzel is getting more of a moment and that this expansion and deepening is about her taking her agency back. I think that's really important for a Disney princess, for the type of Disney princess that she is. And I just also give Disney major props for making this a musical series. It costs more, it requires more effort, but as we have discussed on the pod before, music is such a major part of the world of Tangled, and the fact that we get more of that is so wonderful. And I haven't listened to the entire album yet, but what I've listened to, I feel like really fits in the world of Tangled that we know.
Yeah, I think we're, as per usual, vibing on some of the same wavelengths. I mean, we get to add more music in the world, which I think is something that many of the people who watched the movie wanted. They wanted more music in Tangled. And so, like, this is our way of getting more music in there. And to have Glenn Slater and Alan Menken back doing music, particularly just the music that we get in Tangled Before Ever After, like, it fits so seamlessly into the music of Tangled. So, I mean, that's a major plus. I like the idea of expanding the world of Tangled, especially because the film is just so focused on Flynn, Rapunzel, and Mother Gothel. So to be able to introduce some new main players to the group and grow it out over a longer period of time, I think is pretty awesome and not something that I would have initially thought to do.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the film to series as a sequel model because it doesn't feel like one is trying to be better than the other and they can live together harmoniously. I think that's one of my favorite things that Marvel is now doing with like taking these films, putting them into a series as like a sequel and then diving back into film. I think it works really, really well. And I think too often people just compare a film to its sequel directly because they're on the same wavelength. And I would hate someone to have done that to Tangled. Like, I think about the people who are like pit Frozen against Frozen 2, where really you need Frozen and Frozen 2 to complete the story. But they're like, Frozen 2 is better than Frozen 1, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I would have hated someone to do that with Tangled and Tangled 2.
Yeah.
But now they don't do that because Tangled the series is its own thing. It's doing something a little bit different, but it's still in the same world. So people can love them both equally as opposed to like fight them.
Yep.
This is also just a minor thing, but we get Rapunzel's blonde hair back, which I love her as a blonde. So
I do too. I actually do too.
So I love that. And it also helps us justify the fact that she has her long hair in the parks. I mean, yes, we have the events of Tangled Ever After where she's back to her bob and everything, but like I know that there's like some suspending of disbelief that's happening because the same thing happens with the Beast. Because sometimes we'll see him in beast form and sometimes we'll see him in human form. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? But I don't know. Having Tangled the series, expanding it, helps me justify a little bit of what I see in the parks.
So you're Team Blondie.
I'm very Team Blondie.
Okay.
But yeah, how you started out sort of being on the cusp of story and how this is another one of those moments of the movie or between the movie and the short that we're expanding. I love that. I enjoy the boundaries of time for the series. And so I think sequel stories actually benefit from having these concrete points.
I agree.
Because then they don't just spin nonsense into the ether forever until they make the original source material not make any sense anymore. So having these like clear beginning and end points for the series, I think is really smart. Because it keeps everyone sort of focused on like, okay, we have the end point that we're trying to get to. The audience knows it. And now we're going to go for the ride of like, oh my gosh, how do we do this? And it also, makes the job of being a writer for the story a little bit more exciting because everyone knows that the characters are going to be okay. But how do you put them in these perilous situations where they still feel like the characters might not be okay?
Yeah. The strength of the story to me is just in the establishment of what's going to happen in the rest of the series being very clear. For me, despite the fact that I don't 100% know yet if I'm like, oh, I'm obsessed with this show. I love it. I really enjoyed it. I don't know yet. I 100% need to know what the deal is with Rapunzel's hair and the mystery of the magic flower. I need the answers. They have given me no other choice but to watch the series because I want to know.
The closing shot of like once the movie ends and then you just have like someone like aggressively moving towards the area and you see the hands. I'm like, who the F is that? I need to know.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to. So, I have to watch now. Thanks a lot. I actually read online that things really get cooking after episode 16, apparently. So
yeah, Erin watched this past summer, and it like consumed her every day. Like she fell deep into Tangled, the series.
I know someone else our age who is deep in Tangled, the series, and I think I really do credit the establishment of the main question of the story is very, very brilliant. And I think I'm expecting will keep the story of the entire series very clean because, like you said, we know what the end point is going to be, but we also know what the main question is. Also, I love that the theme behind the story, behind the mystery we need to solve, is the idea of plus est en vous, there's more in you, which is written in the journal that the queen gives Rapunzel. The fact that that's the overarching theme totally gives me life. It is the perfect addition, I think, to Rapunzel's story. I think that's the only place for her development to go.
Yeah.
Is that. Yeah. And I love that.
Yeah. This is the natural progression of the story. Rapunzel getting accustomed to palace life and having a family. Flynn finally having a place where he belongs. The king and queen dealing with the costs of having a child who has been lost for so long and then making up for lost time / keeping her protected. And then what you were saying about the themes, I mean, I think the themes follow the natural progression of Rapunzel where, you know, the major themes of the film were her sort of like quest for her identity, like figuring out who she is as the lost princess, but also who is the type of person that Rapunzel wants to be. And I see those sort of like being characterized in a new light in the series. Mm-hmm. And I like the sort of notion of Rapunzel feeling herself again when she has the long hair, especially in that fight scene that we see at the end where she's been in this process of hiding it and then moves to embracing it, which I think sets the tone of the story, which is about self-empowerment being the message of the series of like, now that I know who I am, how can I love myself? How can I celebrate myself?
I know.
And then, you know, this is also, you know, very basic, but I like a story with magic. I mean, there's I just do.
The magic.
They do the magic. There's more magic in this. I love exploring the magic of Rapunzel's hair and this ominous haunting of these spikes, and Rapunzel's hair transformation is gorgeous. That scene of her running through the woods and the light just like so freaking good.
Yeah, gorge.
And then the last couple of things that I'll say is just in terms of the story, the tone of the script feels like an extension of the film and the short. It's a balance of the comedy, adventure, fantasy, heart. They just keep getting the blend really right. So it fits with this functioning as a pilot. And then I'm interested to see what you'll have to say about this based on kind of what you said earlier. But I think Cassandra is a fun character to introduce, like a lady in waiting, but also the daughter of the captain of the guard. So she has this sort of like double life that she's not necessarily hiding, but she does sort of hide a little bit. It's interesting. It's very intriguing to me.
Yeah.
And just the fact that she's like a fighter and an adventurer and not very trusting, but also fiercely loyal. There's just like a whole lot introduced about her that my interest is so piqued by this character. So in terms of a story, like introducing a brand new character, but leaving enough about her just sort of like off to the side to make me want to watch the series. I think they did their job with that. So
okay.
that's why I'm kind of like, I'm Team Cassandra, because I want to see where Cassandra goes.
Yes. I have some things to say about Cassandra, whoever the hell she is.
Okay.
But I agree with what you're saying. Yes, my interest is piqued as well.
Okay.
I will start by saying that.
Cool.
But before we get there, in terms of animation, okay, so similar to Big Hero 6, it's a change.
Mm-hmm.
The animation style change is a change that you have to get used to for a minute. I love the look of this. Once again, my interest is very piqued by the way it looks. There's more than meets the eye. There's obviously like the hand-drawn 2D look, clearly, but the way that certain things are filled in almost looks 3D to me. For some reason, the thing that keeps popping into my mind is the appearance of Eugene's hair.
Yeah,
I kept looking at his hair.
They do a lot of work with texture in this.
And
light. They manipulate light, which I think they do a better job of manipulating light around these 2D figures than I think Big Hero 6 necessarily does. I don't know if Big Hero 6 is trying to do that, so I don't want to necessarily hold that against them. But I fully agree. I know exactly what you're saying.
It's just like you have to look. It makes you want to look closer.
Yes.
And so I just appreciate that on the level of the overall feeling that I have about the series, which is that Disney just did not skimp on it. They really gave it a lot of time and effort. But also just, I remembered, when Rapunzel is painting in her journal, she's an artist. So please, make the world of Tangled, whatever it's going to be beautiful, be intricate, be something that's interesting. And I think this is really interesting to look at. Like, I was thinking how excited I am to post stills from it to the Instagram because it's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I also think the character mouth movements on this show, I was like, they're very smooth and they're very specific, which usually with TV, you can get away with doing a lot. I know Big Hero 6, they aren't as careful with the mouth movements. And again, that could also be a very conscious choice, being a comic book kind of thing.
Right.
But here, they really invested some time into these mouth movements, which that is like a dead giveaway to me of the effort that has been put into this. And I think it's fun to see a princess that we've seen in CG transition to something that evokes more of the like hand-drawn animation of the past. It's just like fun to see a character done different ways, because that's part of the exciting nature of animation as a medium, is that you can change it up. You can do your own take on it.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on to our last section of strengths of the Tangled series. So the voice performances, it's much the same for me as Big Hero 6, where it's just such a treat to have original voice actors back. Having Mandy and Zachary Levi is just like, for me, non-negotiable. It has to be them. And so thank goodness it was. It lends the adventure that has some changes, a lot of consistency that I think it needs. And I think it speaks, again, to the quality of the series that these two extremely busy actors wanted to continue their work as Rapunzel and Eugene for over a very solid amount of time. And thank goodness we get more singing out of them, because the Wind in My Hair reprise, those vocals were fire.
They're fire.
Zachary Levi was up there singing to the gods. And thank goodness, I just need more of him singing as Flynn.
Yeah.
Just so good. And I overall can't explain how much I love seeing all of these Broadway names in the cast. I just want to see more hiring of theater actors for animation that includes singing and doesn't include singing, because they're so good at it.
I had that written down. I had the Broadway talent here.
Yes, Broadway. And also, I didn't look up the voice cast before I watched. I completely forgot that Laura Benanti was voicing
Lady Kane.
And I didn't know, even when I listened back once I knew, I was like, she's being a character. I think there's really nice work being done there as well, with some more celebrity talent just kind of disappearing into their character a little bit. Nothing was super jarring to me, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah. I mean, I said, you've got your original cast back in its entirety. Like, they even have Jeffrey Tambor and
Jeffrey Tambor.
They have Brad Garrett. Like, they've got they even have like Donna Murphy doing the little like Mother Gothel. Like, she's here for like 3 seconds of the first episode, and they're like, we get it. And I mean, who wouldn't want to return to the world of Tangled. I mean, especially if like a few hours in a recording booth gets you those Disney dollars, like, yeah. But I do love that like Zachary Levi and Mandy Moore wanted to return to these characters because the world should laud them for what they have done with these characters. Because
truly, I agree. I agree.
It's really nice work.
It is.
I don't know. I do think it sort of has influenced the way that people are approaching the lead characters in this new wave of the Disney revival era. Like, just really kind of exploring in the same way that I feel like some of those iconic people like Nathan Lane, Robin Williams just explored the boundaries of these characters.
Yeah.
We're seeing that same amount of play in our leads, which is really fun.
Yeah. Oh, we're such Tangled apologists. We have other things to say, I promise.
All right. So do we want to hop back to Big Hero 6 for some of the weaknesses here?
I think we do.
All right. So weaknesses of Big Hero 6, the series, in terms of overall concept, expansion of the source material. I don't really have any weaknesses in the expansion of the source material. I think this seemed like the obvious and right direction to move into a series. And I think to stray from it probably would have been a mistake. So I actually don't really have anything in this category. I'm interested to see if you do.
Mine is very specific to me and the way I decided to experience this, and that it's been a while since I've seen Big Hero 6. I remember a lot about it, but I was like, let me just not watch it and see how this is. So I feel like you need the film in order to truly understand the poignancy of everything Hiro is doing in memory of Tadashi. And then because I didn't rewatch it, I did not feel as attached to the villain and Big Hero 6 team's conflict plot line and them becoming superheroes. Again, this is very personal to me. I don't think it's really a weakness, but I just wonder, I don't know, it feels like it needs the film very much, which I guess makes sense. It's a spinoff, but still, I don't know.
That's fair. I think that's fair. And I think that actually sort of moves into some of the weaknesses that I have in the story of the pilot, where if you do watch the movie right into the series, as I did, there are some moments in the epilogue that do conflict.
Even I knew that.
With what happens in the series. So, for example, one of the things that happens in Big Hero 6, the series, is we see Aunt Cass interact with Baymax.
Yeah.
And she seems to like know who he is when he returns. She's like, Baymax. And I'm like, in the entire movie of Big Hero 6, Hiro is hiding Baymax from Aunt Cass.
Yeah.
So it was very jarring for me to be like, okay, this was this big secret from Aunt Cass. And then all of a sudden, like, she knows about it. And it's like, do we know whether or not she knows that they did all of the stuff at the Kraytech incident, like all of that? Does she know that was them? Or are they going to have in the rest of the series, which I'll still have to watch, do they have this sort of like, this is his like by night sort of situation that he has to hide from Aunt Cass and she doesn't know, and like that sort of thing. So that was inconsistent for me. And I really saw that. I was like, wait, Aunt Cass doesn't know Baymax. Why is she hugging him right now? And so it's just these little inconsistencies that happen that most people I don't think will think twice about it, especially if they haven't watched it. But I'm interested to see that you have noticed them. But I think fans of the movie or people who watch the movie right into the show definitely will have an eyebrow raised. And it's very fixable. So I don't understand why that didn't happen.
That's my thing. Because isn't there a discrepancy as well in the way that the name Big Hero 6 comes about as well? I think there's a difference there too. And again, it seems silly, but to me, it's so lazy. It's like, if you're going to go for it and give me a fill in the blanks pilot, then part of the job is making everything fit and make sense. And you just have to do that.
Yeah. So there are also definitely some times that I can tell that the show is meant for younger audiences in some of the scripts, especially with Fred. I think some of his humor feels a bit easier and lacks some of the funny punch that his character in the film has, because I think people really took the time with the script for Big Hero 6. So like the way that he is just like a little bit more of a sophisticated humor than we get in the TV series.
I agree.
But that being said, I don't feel isolated watching this TV series that like, this isn't for me. I do feel like I'm invited to watch it. And I could pretty easily fall right back into the story after those little like moments that sort of like take me out. So it wasn't a deal breaker for me, but I was like, I think part of it also is the fact that we don't have TJ Miller, which I'll talk a little bit when we talk about voice performances. But I love Fred as a character in Big Hero 6 because he's funny, but he's like he never sort of like goes for like one of the cheap laughs. Like he does like a lot of those like goofball things, but it's never in the way that you necessarily would expect. And some of the things that we encountered with Fred in this Baymax Returns TV movie pilot were a bit predictable. But also that's the nature of TV. So I'm not going to hold it really hard against them.
That isolated feeling you described that you didn't feel, I think I felt it a little.
Okay.
I think some of it is just like, maybe it's just like this isn't necessarily, even if it was more geared towards adults, maybe isn't necessarily something I would watch. But also for me, all right, I'm about to like expose myself a little bit to some judgment here, but let's go.
Oh, God.
No, just like nothing crazy, but I can't believe I'm saying this. I had a bit of a hard time keeping my attention on this show. If I checked a text for a second, I felt like I missed something in terms of the conflict or the mission, and I just wonder how kids would fare watching this. Maybe there's something wrong with me, and kids are like, yeah, I know everything that's going on. What are you talking about?
Oh.
But it was just like my mind would wander when I was watching this, and I think it's not a fault. Maybe it's just a preference of mine. Compared to Tangled, it also seems like there will not be an overarching theme or goal here. That's mostly because it's more of a serial superhero show. We're going to meet new villains and have new problems, and then they're going to get solved and go away. It makes total sense for something that's based on a comic. But for me, it just wasn't something that's personally enough to hold my attention. And I think this touches on the animation a little bit, but I think the overall feeling for me was, I can't put my finger on why, it was a little cold. And I like to watch cartoons. Like when I'm watching kids shows with the kids I babysit, I'm having a good old time. It's nice to like turn my brain off for a minute and just like go somewhere else. And I couldn't get that feeling from this of being like, I'm going to watch like a cartoon and just be chill for a minute and just think about the cartoon. And I couldn't get there with this. And I think it's a me thing.
I'm wondering what a few more episodes would do. Too.
Yeah, me too. And it's funny because I said that one of the strengths was the multiple plot lines, but at the same time I was just like, what happened?
Yeah, well, I know that is the danger of it. I mean, like, I think of Game of Thrones, which is a master of multiple plot lines. Sometimes you'd see a character one time in an episode, but if you missed that scene, they weren't in the episode for you. And like some of that is kind of what happens here. Is like if you miss one of the scenes with Yama, where he like reveals that he basically has cloned all of the internal skeleton of Baymax. If you missed that,
be me.
Oh, you missed it. Well, that's a big thing to miss.
That's why I loved when we went into the second episode. They're like, last time on Big Hero 6, and I was like, oh, thank God.
And you were like, oh shit, I missed something big.
I did.
Oh God, that's really funny.
Judge me. I'm sorry.
That's really funny. All right, that's an interesting take. Yeah, I'm curious as to why that is, because there were times where I felt like the isolation, but I don't know. I felt pretty engaged, and I'm wondering if that's also a different effect of me having watched the film into this one. So maybe we'll do some experiments about this. Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll be little scientists ourselves. Who knows?
You are the control.
So moving on to the animation, weaknesses in the animation. You know, there are a few times in watching it where I feel like there's something lost in the style of animation because, as I had said earlier, there is this more direct comparison because we are revisiting locations that we've seen rendered in CG. And there's a lot of things that CG work is able to do with light that this comic style can't do. So that's a bit of a disadvantage with a series that has a lot of locations and special effects that we're familiar with. Like to see San Fransokyo tech in the movie and in the TV show be so different in the artistic styling, but being the same thing is a hurdle that people have to overcome. I think it's easier for kids. I think kids are much more forgiving, but as an older person, you're just like, your brain is kind of grappling these two things at the same time.
Since you brought that up, my main weakness is just related to that, in that one of my favorite parts, my favorite aspects of Big Hero 6, the film, was San Fransokyo itself.
Yeah.
And I found it so beautiful, fascinating. It looked like it was filled with all these interesting things that I wanted to see. And I think the amazingness and quirkiness of that city was just lost in this animation style. I think it's so evocative in the film. And I think, I don't know, I wish the city was just featured more in the show and that it looked more beautiful. And it's so unique that I wanted like some of the plot to even bring me to more corners of the city, but not in this animation style because it's a little flat for me.
The best word that I can describe San Fransokyo as is vibrant.
Yeah, I love it.
And we lose the vibrance. And I think that's almost directly related to the fact that we lose the way that CG can work with light.
That's so interesting.
Because so much of what we see in there are these like billboards and the way like this like neon lights and the way different things are lit and these colors and stuff like that, which we can get the colors and we can get things that kind of look like light, but it's not actually light. So,
yeah.
And I also had said, I think this is really true in some of the battle scenes as well, where I can feel like there's a little bit of a letdown of wanting to see these scenes and their effects fully rendered, particularly with Honey Lemon and her amazing chemical compound balls. Like they just become slightly lackluster because when you see it rendered in the CG, you can see the textures of it very clearly. Like when something turns into powder versus when something turns into gas versus when something turns into ice. Like it's very clear. And it's a bit more of a harder time to animate that. Yeah. And so our last section for weaknesses for Big Hero 6, voice performances. I mean, I really have here that it is a bit of a shame that we weren't able to get the entire original cast of voice actors back, but especially for TJ Miller as Fred, especially for how heavily featured Fred is in the TV movie.
He really is, yeah.
And to not have Damon Wayans Jr. as Wasabi, his Wasabi was just so fun.
I loved his Wasabi.
I know. And I mean, we still get a very, very good read of Wasabi that's very in line with the script.
I agree.
But I'm a sucker for those original voice actors. And I think that the new actors, they do honor those original performances. But TJ Miller especially just has such a distinct voice that to hear someone like do a TJ Miller, to know that there's that sort of like extra barrier, like that one step removal from it, you know, it's a bit of a loss. So
yeah.
And that's that on the weaknesses there.
Interesting. Yeah. We always say this in these episodes, but I'm like, who will
I
win?
really don't know who's winning. I truly don't know.
I think this conversation of the Tangled weaknesses will decide.
Then let's get into it, shall we?
We shall.
That was like so scripted. Even though we don't really script our podcast
but
at all.
It wasn't.
Wow. All right.
God. Okay. So for weaknesses in the concept, expansion of the source material for Tangled the series, my weakness here, again, I watched the first actual episode after I watched the TV movie. And I know that I think I need to hang on and get further into the series, but we're differing here. I think this is just because it's at the beginning. So far, I'm not a huge fan of some of the new characters in that, like, you know, that aren't related to the, you know, expansion of the source material. So I think the expansion from it is sort of the weakness. For example, Varian, who appears in the first actual episode, and his town feel a lot to me removed from the world of Corona and the tone of Tangled a little. And
yeah, Varian was kind of annoying.
Thank you. I was just about to say, he's just freaking annoying. I was like, why would you make a spinoff series of him? He's so annoying.
I think we'll learn more about him in the future, but like, as an introduction, that's rough.
Yeah, he felt a little just like silly, haha, I don't know what I'm doing, slapsticky. And it's just like, there's definitely room for slapstick type humor in Tangled, like the Ruffians, but this just was not it for me. We'll get a little bit more into Cassandra and when we talk about the story for sure. But yeah, to me, the major weakness is some of the characters who were not in the original material.
Fair. I mean, I didn't have that, but I can certainly see it.
Okay.
Something that I had as sort of a weakness is this isn't so much of a weakness of it, but I didn't finish watching Tangled and think, oh, I need more Tangled. In the same way that I finished watching Big Hero 6 and I was like, I could see a TV series of this.
Okay.
But that being said, I'm not mad about it. So at all. Like I just didn't necessarily think it was needed. But
yeah.
I'm not mad about it. So
No. We never could be about Tangled.
No.
We could never be mad about more.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's go into the story.
Yeah. Tell me what you think about this, okay? So I'm going to start in terms of weaknesses in the story with the villain in the TV movie, who is, spoiler, sorry, Lady Kane. I love me some Laura Benanti. She's amazing. But I just totally was not here for her as the villain. I know that she's not going to be the arch villain of the series or anything, but I know that it will be nearly impossible to find another villain who is Mother Gothel level because she's one of the best villains ever. And it's a TV series. But even, again, this is going into another category a little, but even Lady Kane's design was a little strange to me. Her appearance was a little just didn't gel for me. She looked out of place.
You didn't like her tattoo?
I didn't like her tattoos. I get it.
She's kind of like a pirate.
I don't like, okay, yeah, people in this universe could have tattoos, but no. and okay, another thing. I'm getting a little personal here.
All right.
This is where it's gonna get muddy because we love Tangled.
She's coming for Cassandra.
I am, but first, it's related. I'm sure this will change as well, but there's something that irked me about the fact that Flynn was getting left out of things.
Oh.
I mean, I know he's obviously going to end up being a big part of the adventure. I know he was one of the three main characters in Tangled, but I felt like Cassandra was overshadowing his part in this, which is really important. And we did not get a moment to understand why Rapunzel likes Cassandra, aside from the fact that she was just assigned to be her lady in waiting. She seems super negative, a little bit deceptive, which I know is for a reason. I know a little bit of what happens later. It makes me like judge Rapunzel a little bit. I hate that in the series people call her Raps.
Oh.
Stop that. Stop that immediately. What is that cartoony, not real junk? That's a kid show.
I do hate, like, I think about Once Upon a Time when they would refer to Rumpelstiltskin as Rumple. I'd be like,
yeah, please stop.
No.
Stop it. It makes me vomit in my mouth. So I think I'm figuring out here that I think I have an issue here with the development of the new female characters. And honestly, a little bit of what's happening with Rapunzel too. The women in this, and now knowing the creative team, sorry, but we're going there. The women, I understand what you're saying in that, like, there is something about Cassandra that I am intrigued by for sure. There's intricacies. But at the same time, I feel like the women in this are a little tropey.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and things like Rapunzel. All right. I'm just going to go for it.
Go for it.
Things like Rapunzel still not wanting to wear shoes, it just feels heavy-handed to me. Yes, Rapunzel has a lot of adjusting to do. I get it. But I also love Rapunzel because she's smart and adaptive. She would have just put shoes on. Like, turning her into this just like, oh, I'm ditzy, I'm not wearing shoes. That is not the princess that we know and love. Stop doing that to her. Her name is not Raps. Her name is Rapunzel. And I don't know, just Cassandra, just what the hell? Like, I know we're supposed to be like, I don't know about her. But I just don't understand why Rapunzel is taking her on as her companion, her teammate in this. I don't like that. Don't like it.
I get that. I think story-wise, they're looking at, okay, we know Flynn.
Yeah.
We know in the series that there's going to be a conflict between Flynn and Cassandra and their relationship.
Right.
So I think that they were probably like, okay, we're going to use this TV movie to sort of launch this relationship with Rapunzel and Cassandra. But to your point, aside from their like bonding moment of visiting outside the walls of Corona and stuff like that, we don't see any sort of like distill it down a little bit where we can just sort of like
not at
bring
all.
it home, have this like moment of like deep connection between the two of them, which I think would have really helped us to like feel a little bit more for Cassandra, so that we ourselves are a little conflicted where it's like, well, I like Cassandra, but she doesn't like Flynn, but I love Flynn and he doesn't necessarily like Cassandra.
Exactly.
Who do I choose? So I understand that. I understand that.
Okay.
I sort of touch on some of the things that you had said, but a good pilot needs to pose the questions of the series / at least the season, while also being able to stand alone, introducing smaller problems that could be solved by the end of the episode. And I think the story of this pilot does a really nice job of posing a lot of the larger questions of the series. Rapunzel's relationship with her parents, an overbearing father, and this adventurous mother who seems to be like that's where she's getting a lot of like her spirit from.
Mm-hmm.
Rapunzel's hair growing back, the criminals in the kingdom who resent the king, Rapunzel and Flynn navigating their relationship. But that being said, I didn't feel like there were a lot of standalone problems of the pilot that wrapped up in a satisfying way.
Very true, yeah.
I agree with your assessment of Lady Kane. I didn't feel like the ending with Lady Kane hit as hard as it could have to be that sort of like standalone problem of the episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Because she didn't feel present as a threat throughout the episode. We didn't even know who she looked, what she looked like. And the scenes with like her, you know, gang of thugs that she had, they sort of existed on the ether, and then we would forget about them for like a solid like 15 minutes, and then like we'd see a scene and then we'd like forget about them because we weren't really sure what they were doing. We didn't have any sort of hints at their plan where we as an audience could be like, what are they doing? We were just like, okay, these are just some general bad guys. So I think she needed to feel more present as a threat throughout the episode in order for that moment at the end to really feel like a nice climax, like bring it home moment. And she could have been that character. And so it wasn't as satisfying of a payoff moment of her like closing the loop of the pilot.
We had a full hour to do it too. Like something needed to be closed. Yeah.
And I think she probably could have benefited from a little bit spicier of a motive.
Yep.
Like,
because even when I explained it out loud, I was like, "Ooh, it's a little weak."
Yeah, I'm like, she's an awesome fighter. She's holding her own against a candelabra with two fans and against the daughter of the captain of the guard, who you assume is very, very well trained.
Yeah.
So I'm like, there are some pieces that are all there, but I just feel like we could have gone a little bit farther with her.
Yeah.
That all being said, I know that the climax moment is less of that face-off with a big bad and more about Rapunzel embracing her hair as part of like her identity, like that self-empowerment moment. So like I do see that they're trying to give that moment its due, but I do think that our villain needs, our villain is going to be our sort of like, this is our A story of the pilot. I think our A story needed to be a little bit better. I'm looking forward to how she might return in the rest of the series, because I do think that this story could benefit from a sort of big bad, but following Mother Gothel is like,
it's so hard.
It's really hard.
It's impossible.
She's a sophisticated villain.
Yeah.
But Lady Kane wasn't cutting it for the pilot. Come on, lady. Use your tattoos.
Yeah, that's okay.
I mean,
so right
just
into
the fact that like she's just like, no one's leaving, and then Maximus just tramples her with. I'm like, 1, she should be dead. 2, that's hilarious. But 3, to have this like villain character be beat in this really, really funny moment, I'm like, oh, that she really wasn't a bad guy.
It was also just so awkward when she was like, I'm taking everyone into the cage, and they kind of like said, okay, walk in. Like, someone just say no. She won't know what to do.
Yeah, I know. She's like a modified child catcher from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. She's like, I'm going to take the king. I'm not going to take the queen. I'm going to take a couple of these like attendees to the coronation because they've got some nice clothes. I'm going to leave some other folks out here. I'm not taking the princess, and I'm not taking Flynn Rider.
And there was just like also just like kind of like silence, and everyone was walking really slow. It was just, there were no stakes.
Yeah, and the king's just like, all right, this is what happens now. I'm like, what? No. I'm like, you don't have to go.
I know. Like, yeah,
they have weapons, but maybe fight a little bit. Like,
yeah, no.
But back to the weaknesses.
Yeah. So, Lady Kane, this was I mentioned the animation before. So let's head over to the animation. Lady Kane's tattoos just felt very off to me. And so I think, with the animation, like we've discussed, this could not have been a CG series. Number one, it would be way too expensive.
Considering Tangled was the most expensive animated film ever to be made.
It would never happen. It wouldn't even be worth it, honestly. And like you said, I'm fine differentiating it. But to me, the only slip up here is that it's placed in the middle of two CG pieces that tell the beginning and end of the story. So it's just a little strange that we're going once the series finishes, we go to, Ever After and we're back to CG. A little strange, whatever, I understand. And then my other thing is just a little nitpicky, which is I noticed a few costume inconsistencies with Rapunzel. Like she'd be wearing a royal gown one moment and then would be back to the purple classic Rapunzel the next moment. Just a little sloppy. And I just want other gowns. She's a princess now. I understand it's supposed to be like she's having a hard time adjusting, She's wearing bare feet in her old dress. I don't know. Could we not? I don't know.
Let's get some more costumes.
Give her something else. More costumes.
The gals in Frozen got new costumes.
Yeah, and they're so good.
They're so
okay,
good.
It's a movie, but fine.
Yeah, that one, it's like a fashion show, basically. Frozen's a fashion show.
It is. That's why we love it.
That's why we love it. Yeah, I think my complaint in the animation is I think there is a little bit of a justification for it in terms of like the art that Rapunzel does. But I also feel like that's a little bit reaching for me. I would have loved to see a little bit more intentionality around it. Like I understood the logistics of having to do it this way, but I just wanted to see maybe is there a way to make it more intentional? Maybe could the animation itself be like a curse on the kingdom? Like maybe the series starts out in CG and then all of a sudden it flips into this 2D style. And then maybe the quest of the series is them like flipping it back to the CG. I don't know. Maybe that's hokey, but like it doesn't even have to be as extreme as that. But I think it could have afforded just like a little bit more intentionality.
Yeah. And, rounding it out with the voice performances, I'm kind of feeling the same way. Is there a weakness? Not necessarily, but I did have this feeling, and I do not think it is the fault of the voice actors at all. But in a weird way, I started to miss when the king and queen were these silent, benevolent figures.
I know. I wrote down Clancy Brown's King Frederick is just not what I imagined his voice to be. And like, I get it, but for some reason, I just imagined him having like a bit softer of a voice.
He's a little bit of a meanie. He's a meanie a little. Yeah.
I know. I did like the mystery around them.
I loved it because I could fill in exactly what I wanted them to be.
I didn't mind Julie Bowen.
No, I didn't until I thought more about the fact that it was her and all I heard was Modern Family and I was like,
you have Claire Dunphy just being like on her sofa, just like being like,
exactly.
This is the diary that I want you to have.
yeah.
Phil.
Yeah. That's so funny. I can't believe we thought the same thing about that. Oh my God.
Yeah. It was,
That's kind of all I have to say about it. I don't think it's their fault. I think I just love the fact that I could put all of my emotions onto these silent figures and just watch the king cry in the movie and feel all the feels. And
that's also the trap of it when you have silent characters and then you move on to her life as a princess. Like, obviously they're going to have to speak. Obviously we're going to have to find voices for it. And for a good amount of people, the voices that we pick are not going to be the ones that they invented in their brain. All right.
This is hard because I feel like a lot of this, now that I've kind of measured the strengths and weaknesses and how many we kind of had listed for each, I feel like this is going to end up being a preference thing of what type of show you like to watch. Like one's a superhero show, one is kind of like a musical adventure.
Yeah. It does in many ways feel a bit like a toss-up, which I don't like to do for a Showdown because I feel like what was the point of us just doing all of this if we were going to declare a winner? I think I'm going to rely on my gut here.
Okay.
And there is something that has just been like nagging at me that says my pick for this is Big Hero 6, the series.
Oh.
And so I'm okay if the fact that like you choose one and I choose a different one for this Showdown, but I think my pick is Big Hero 6, the series, especially as I, dove deeper into some of like the actual goings on of the series. But also there is something to be said for me watching this movie going, I want a TV series of this and then getting it.
Yeah.
Like that that does something to be like, there is potential for this, and to see Disney be like, we hear you loud and clear, and like actualize it. That means that carries a little bit of weight for me that I think Tangled doesn't have. Where Tangled, I'm like, this is bonus. This is extra. I enjoy it. I think in terms of strengths and weaknesses, if I'm calling Big Hero 6 and Tangled about even, then this has to sort of like come in as my thing to tilt the scales.
Yeah.
And it does execute the series the way that I imagined that it would.
Yeah.
Yes, do I miss some of the animation? Of course. But it has that intentionality in the animation, and it does feel like everything is coming from story, which I really, really appreciate. So Big Hero 6, the series, that's my pick.
It's like you could...
I'm not trying to sell you on it, but that's,
you could. That's
just
the
my
thing.
little moment.
That's why it's so difficult for me, because you could sell me on it. Because I agree in terms of like, this is a very clean, this should be a TV series feeling. Yet,
this is a show that I would watch eating breakfast, and probably tomorrow I will watch it while I eat breakfast.
That's what's hard, is I could probably watch Tangled eating breakfast. And it's, again, personal preference, but I'm torn because, yes, I do feel like it's like, this should be a TV series and that needs to be honored. But then there's like the other thing that, again, is probably personal, but I'm like, there's a mystery to the Tangled series that I simply just must follow through to the end. And I don't feel that way about Big Hero 6. I'm like, yeah, there'll be more villains, there'll be more problems, they will solve it. I love Baymax. But you could convince me, like what you said is convincing to me, but then I think about like putting Tangled the series in the trash, and I feel like I can't, but then I'm also so hurt about what some of these men did to some of these characters, and it bothers me. And there's nothing in Big Hero 6 like that for me, where I'm like, oh, why did you do that?
Yeah.
So what do I do? I also feel super self-conscious about picking another Tangled thing, because we always do that.
I get that, but I'm okay with this being one that we're split on.
All right. It's just because I know I'm going to keep watching Tangled, and I'm not going to watch Big Hero 6, so I just have to just...
I mean, I know I'm going to keep watching both of them.
Because Sandra makes me so mad, I just have to go down saying that. We'll see what happens.
Well,
can we do this? It's wrong, but
I think we can do this.
All right.
I think we can do this.
Okay.
It's been a year. We've done a good number of showdowns where we picked something.
Yeah.
We still have picked something. We're just not in agreement here.
Okay. And
So
it's not like so strong. It's just like, it's my gut. Yeah, it's my gut.
Yeah, this is my gut as well. And, you know, thinking about like, I am going to watch both of these series. The one that I'm probably going to watch tomorrow, Big Hero 6.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. Wow.
Yeah. All right. So Big Hero 6 for me, Tangled for Caroline.
Yeah.
Those are our winners. Honestly, I really don't think you can go wrong with either of these series.
I
think there's some really, really good Disney TV animation that we've got.
It was such a treat to discover. I just didn't know that both of these started with pretty much films. It's just really, I'm like, Disney? I didn't even know. Okay.
It's an inventive rollout. There's lots of stuff happening, and it's entertainment for kids to watch that, you know, as a person who would be babysitting a kid or someone or sitting there watching, you wouldn't feel awkward about watching with or wouldn't feel awkward about watching on your own.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I think that's going to do it for us for this Showdown episode. So thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe or follow to the podcast wherever you are listening. Giving those ratings and reviews really helps us reach new audience members, making sure new people know about the podcast, that we show up in search results in podcast apps and things like that. So I know it seems like a very inconsequential thing on your end, but it actually goes quite a long way for us. And we read all of the things that you say.
Every single one. We have a full discussion about it. We
do. And we cry and we laugh and we smile and we're like, oh my God, are we doing something with our lives? So, you know, it's nice. Thank you in advance for doing that. Yeah. And we also don't want you to miss anything. So hitting that follow, subscribe button, like, you won't miss it. I promise. I promise.
Another great way to keep up with us is, of course, social media. We will definitely be asking for some input about your decision about the Showdown. So please follow us. We are at Unfortunate Pod on Twitter, and we are at Poor Unfortunate Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really wanted to get into a conversation about this, please join us in the Poor Unfortunate Fam, which is our private Facebook group for our listeners to connect with each other, to connect about Disney, to discuss the episode, to discuss completely unrelated Disney topics. We get into such fun discussions and fun quizzes over there. So we're growing by the day, and we would love to have you be a part of it.
And yeah, if you have any suggestions or anything that you'd like to hear in future episodes, you can also email us. We are at poorunfortunatepodcast@gmail.com. And then, as I always say, it does take us a little bit of money to keep the podcast up and running and coming to you, keeping it, for the most part, ad-free. So if you are so inclined, we do have a PayPal account where we accept donations. It is in the episode description, and it is on our website links on all of our social media accounts. Truly, anything that you might have to spare goes a long way for us. You can make a $1 donation, $5, $10, $50. You can make it one time. You can make it monthly. So much flexibility. All of it just goes right back into the podcast to make sure that we are giving you the content that you want to hear and can keep doing this. So thank you in advance for considering giving us a nice little donation. And yeah, I think that's all I've got to say about that, Caroline.
I think it is.
Alrighty. Well, you've reached the end. Congratulations.
There is no answer for you here. Look inside your own heart.
I know. If you really thought that there was going to be no, they decided on who the Showdown winner was going to be together, you're wrong. So until next time,
Beluga Savruga.